Okay, the side of the building just fell. The side of the building just collapsed here on the side of the Park Warehouse. We've got a lot of firefighters in this area too. We're gonna need to move back. We're gonna need to move back even further here. Oh my goodness.
Streets are closed in both directions for about 3 blocks. Folsom is just to our south, 1 block south of 39th and Park. That street is completely closed to traffic right now as well. And then about 1 block north as well, it is also closed. So traffic, a complete nightmare right here. We're still watching it unfold. The fire still burning out of control. You saw that wall collapse earlier onto one of the fire trucks. We still haven't gotten word that anyone was injured in that collapse, but we'll, of course, be getting more details as they become available.
Fortunately, the reports we're hearing, Rennie, are that everyone got out safely, but yet one person has been injured and taken to the hospital.
And you mentioned the fact that Abby talked about those sparks, and so you wonder now exactly how this thing got started. Maybe it was started by one of those sparks. Let's go back now to Abby Larica, who continues to be live on the scene with us on the phone as well as with Facebook Live. And Abby, any new developments since the last time we talked to you? It was just a couple of minutes ago.
Right, Rennie and Kay, you can really see now what I'm looking at here from the ground level. We are talking about this side wall right here that collapsed. At this point, we've got more pushback from the fire department, so we're being told to move back even further from that perimeter where you saw some people standing there at the end. A lot of people at this point have cleared this scene because when we were standing right there on the edge by where that wall collapsed, I mean, we were there just seconds before talking to the fire captain right there, and then we had to go running. When that happened, I was streaming on Facebook Live talking to a young woman who runs a family-owned business just a couple years old in that 100-year-old building. Now she knows she lost everything.
How many businesses operate from this warehouse?
At this point, they don't know an exact number. I know, again, I spoke with one woman. One moment. I just heard something that sounded like it could have been another wall. I don't know if that would be something like collapsing again or if that might be them taking down interior structures. I want to make sure I keep an eye and ear out for what's going on here behind me so I know we're staying safe as we're delivering the report here. But we do know, again, that there's at least 3 businesses. The transportation company, I spoke with the woman who owns that, the warehouse service itself, as well as that Better Life Ministry that operates out here.
Abby, from my vantage point, we've seen a few different pictures of the building on fire. It looks as if a side of the building is actually melting. From what you could see, is that indeed the case, or has it just collapsed to the point and the top of it is now burning?
At this point, I mean, the exterior walls of this building are brick. This is a building that's about 100 years old or so, and so it's a pretty solid structure on the outside. Just to give you an idea, I mean, the entire way around is all brick, and they went into collapse mode because that's what they were worried about happening, is things like the wall completely falling, because it's not something that is going to necessarily burn as much as it is going to collapse and cause even more of a danger for the more than 100 firefighters we have here on the scene.
Abby, you mentioned that a collapse of that wall. You were there when it went down. Was there an explosion beforehand, or was it just a collapse from what you can tell?
It was, as far as I could tell, as far as I could hear, it was just a collapse. And again, just moments before we were talking with the fire captain who said that's the stage they were preparing to get into, but I don't know if you could really prepare for the shock of something like that, because I was speaking to a woman. She was showing me a photo of her and her brother standing in front of their business, and then next thing you know, the wall of the building where that business is housed collapsed, and we just started running. So it's one of those things that felt really, really sudden, and it went from, again, just a little smoke coming out of the front, a little smoke coming off the roof, to what you see here now in about an hour in the time that we've been here.
So just to reset, in case you're just joining us, you have been watching live pictures from 39th and Park, north of 44, west of Grand in South St. Louis, a business called Park Warehouse Service that contains at least 3 businesses operating out of there, caught fire and exploded this morning in St. Louis, and you can see we have
there's the fire truck right there.
Huge fire response to this. Several ladders in the air, firefighters pouring water on this, but really it's such a ferocious fire that water really isn't making a difference.
Yeah, you're really starting to wonder if they're making any impact at all on this fire. And I don't know if you were able to notice that or not, but you saw the one fire truck on the side of the building where the top of the fire truck was damaged. We were told earlier that part of that collapse of the building landed on that truck.
Right.
And as you can see, that was indeed the case with the damage that was done to it.
So we've been asking questions about what's inside this warehouse, and we were told foam, wood, plastic. There was a concern at some point that there was magnesium in the basement. That was apparently ruled out. But whatever fuel these flames are feeding off of is so strong that this fire is nowhere near being under control. A massive warehouse fire takes a dangerous turn in South St. Louis.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Okay, the side of the building just fell.
A fire truck caught in the debris, and billowing smoke stretches miles from the Botanical Heights neighborhood to the Arch.
I just wanted to make sure everybody was okay.
Startled workers now possibly out of a job as 100 firefighters battle the still burning fire while keeping themselves and others safe.
This is 5 on your side.
And we begin first at 4 with a live look at that massive fire still burning at a warehouse in South St. Louis. It's been burning all day, and within the past hour, the flames roared back to life. That fire started around 11 this morning. That was at Park Warehousing Services in the Botanical Heights neighborhood right here. That's on Park Avenue and 39th Street. It's between South Grand and Vandeventer, and you can see it's just west of Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital. We have reporters covering every angle of this story for you. Let's turn things over to Mike Bush. He's live near the scene. Mike, what's happening now?
Okay, I just wanted to give you a sense of where we are. We are in the Botanical Heights neighborhood. We're at the corner of Folsom and Thurman, just a few blocks from Park, where this warehouse's fire is burning. And you can see the thick smoke. It is just as thick as it was when we first arrived hours ago. In the air, you can smell this citronella smell, and the reason for that is that in that warehouse are 150,000 17-ounce citronella candles, so it smells like citronella out here, but industrial strength. So here's what we know so far. The fire started burning in the basement of the building and has been burning now for nearly 6 hours. As many as 100 firefighters are working to put it out, and first responders have set up this perimeter around the building. No one can get within a block of it. 2 people are hurt, including 1 firefighter. Both are being treated for smoke inhalation. Now, it's a massive building. It takes up about 3 acres. All kinds of things are stored here. I mentioned the citronella candles, books, car seats, styrofoam. Parts of the building collapsed. Some of the debris rained down on fire trucks. The building is home, as I mentioned, to several businesses. Firefighters were still arriving when 5 on your side's Daniel Wynn arrived on the scene. And Daniel, I know you talked to a woman who was inside the building and saw smoke in her office.
Yeah, Mike, Amy Wellers was an office manager for Park Warehouse Services. She says it was just an ordinary Wednesday morning, and that's when everything changed in just a matter of moments. She says she saw smoke coming through the vents in her office. She said the electrical sockets started smoking, and that's when she heard screaming and yelling. She quickly then ran outside, calling 911. She tells me this is especially devastating for her. She's only been there 6 months and is now waking up tomorrow without a job.
It's just sad. I've only worked there for 6 months. It's really sad, and I liked it. I liked it a lot. I thought I had finally found my place.
Now, Amy tells me there were about 15 or 20 people who work inside the building. She tells me 5 businesses were in that building in all. Now, coming up at 5 o'clock, we're talking to another business owner in the building. She tells me she lost hard drives, files, personal information for all of her client accounts. Completely devastating for her business. That's coming up tonight at 5. Mike?
All right, Daniel, thanks very much. This warehouse is a massive storage space, and it holds several companies, including a company called Reedy Press. Casey Nolan caught up with a local author who saw some of his stock go up in flames. Casey.
Yeah, that's right, Mike. First, we'll just give you another look, another angle from where you are. We're about a block or so away. If there's any good news to report from this massive plume of smoke, it's that the color seems to be getting lighter, presumably meaning firefighters are getting some water on these flames that, as Kay and you have said, kicked up again in the last hour. We're also hearing a loud popping sound. We don't know exactly what that is. We reached out to firefighters. Of course, they are busy, so we're still waiting to find out what that sound could be. Take another look at this fire on tape. This is a view, the smoke could be seen for miles, a view that a lot of people had around the St. Louis area. This is kind of coming in from the county on eastbound 44, blocking out downtown and the Arch about 5 hours after the fire started. Bill Cleveland was watching from home. He's an author who was supposed to be in the warehouse today because he's down to just one case, 44 books he's trying to sell this holiday season. He wrote the 100 Things to Do in America Before You Die, but he lost thousands of copies of his book inside this fire, just one of many who lost books and several other products stored here in the warehouse. He says, though, he's just glad he hadn't made it down to the warehouse when that fire started.
The folks at the publishing company, Reedy Press, they lost, must have been hundreds of thousands of books from folks, not just authors here in St. Louis, but folks all over the country. And so, yeah, your heart breaks for those people. This is not a big deal. We can get these reprinted, but, you know, when you lose your whole business, essentially, and watch it go up in flames on television, I mean, I can't even imagine how they must feel.
So some perspective for him there. Again, the smoke continues to billow here, Mike, and as we said, starting to turn from that super dark black smoke to a little bit lighter. We're hoping that's a good sign. Mike?
All right, Casey, thanks very much. I mentioned we're in the Botanical Heights neighborhood, but you can see this smoke from pretty much anywhere in the St. Louis region, coming up I-44 or Highway 40. And of course, the people who live around here are keeping a close eye on what's happening. And with more on that, let's check in with Marianne Martinez. Marianne?
Mike, we are on top of a roof that is near this warehouse fire. And oh my goodness, let's pan over there. We just heard a loud boom. And that might have been a wall coming down, because I tell you what, about 10 seconds ago, we can see, yes, that is a wall coming down. Take a look and you can see the fire right now. Earlier, you couldn't see the fire from this vantage point. So indeed, a wall has come down, and you can see there is a lot more smoke. From this vantage point, I can count at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fire ladders that are putting water on it. And you can see some firefighters who are running toward the scene right now. Now back to what we were talking about, the workers of this company, C.L. Smith, have come up to the roof throughout the day watching the fire burn. This morning they saw some white smoke and a few fire trucks, but the smoke kept getting darker. The company's second building is next to the warehouse on fire. The employees here say their co-workers are all safe, and they're hoping the firefighters who are out here stay safe too.
It's kind of hard to put into words to just imagine somebody's business, place of business burning down and losing all that inventory, but I just hope that everybody's okay, really.
Originally, when it first started, they just had 39th and Park blocked off, and that was right when it started, and we drove down there, and eventually, I mean, the fire trucks just kept coming.
Coming back out here live, we heard just yet another what sounded like a crash, a boom, maybe another wall coming down. So earlier, when we were standing up here, you could not see the interior of the building, but right now you can see everything exposed. You can see wood on fire, more black smoke in the air. So it appears from our vantage point, you can see the building actually collapsing into itself. People have been out here just to see the fire. They're coming from SLU, from Cardinal Glennon. They're taking pictures because, as someone said, it is not every day that you see a fire like this. Mike, we're going to toss it back to you.
All right, Marianne, that is for sure. And Casey mentioned just a couple of seconds ago that he thought maybe that black smoke was lightening up a little bit. Right now, it looks very black, just like it did when we first arrived. Now, this fire is producing so much smoke, it's been detected by the National Weather Service's radar. The fire is just a couple of blocks away, as we mentioned, to SSM, Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital, and St. Louis University Hospital. We are told that all patients are safe. Out of precaution, the hospitals are passing out masks to visitors and employees. The smoke is also working its way downtown near the Arch and across the river into Illinois. The smoke is also affecting traffic. Here's a look at I-44 at Kings Highway from our MoDOT camera. You can see the haze on the highway. Drivers tell us it is hard to see at times, so if you're headed to that area, please be careful. We'll continue to monitor the story and have more for you in just a bit, but let's send it back to Kay Quinn in the studio.
All right, thank you so much, Mike. When I was down there earlier, I saw people outside the hospital with masks on, just people walking down the street, and some of the ambulances and the EMS people were handing out masks to, people that were watching from the police perimeter. So there's a lot of particulate in the air and a lot of people concerned about that in that neighborhood.
And there's a lot of people out here right now who are coming to look at the fire. They're coming out with their phones. I've seen a couple of people come out with drones, flying their drones, what they probably should not do because we've got helicopters flying right now. But they're coming out here taking pictures of this thing. And as you mentioned, there are definitely particulars in the air.
Yeah, and there have been people out there all day, some people for hours standing there watching the flames pop up in that, from the smoke behind your shoulder there. So it's a fire like we haven't seen in a long time. Thank you so much, Mike. We first broke this story on our 5 on Your Side app. You can download it for free at the Apple app and Google Play Store.
Welcome back to First at 4. We continue to be live on the scene of this warehouse fire in South St. Louis on Park Avenue. One thing we heard from firefighters earlier today was that this fire started in the basement of this warehouse, and in the basement it's concrete, so it just built like an oven, and that fire is still burning at this hour. Nearly 100 firefighters are working to put out the flames, and the St. Louis Fire Department lost a fire truck today. It was crushed when part of the building collapsed. That wall of bricks came raining down on an engine truck. No one was hurt at that point, but the truck appears to be a total loss. And Kay, it looks like these firefighters will be working through the night.
And Mike, we continue to hear crashes and loud noises coming as those walls continue to crumble behind you. Really amazing.
And you heard Marian Martinez when she was live on the air. 2 walls collapsed, and we saw that earlier wall collapse onto the fire truck. So this fire the firefighters are still in a defensive mode in terms of fighting this fire.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mike. Look at this. I'm looking at this plume of smoke behind you, and the fact that it's even showing up on National Weather Service radar.
Yeah, we've seen it on the radar.
That shows you how big it is.
Yeah, it's a huge plume of smoke, and it's come back up now, and as we know, it's gotten darker again. So this thing's still ongoing, and the firefighters doing the best they can, but obviously we have to keep them safe, and they have to stay back.
It's been an exhausting day for them.
Yes, and it's going to be an exhaustive evening as they have to deal with it. At least the winds are starting to die down some.
Right, before we go, let's check in with Mike Bush, live at the scene of that warehouse fire in South St. Louis. And Mike, we're going into hour 6 here. Firefighters have been working so hard all day long. I think of those firefighters who are up on those ladder trucks, aiming their sprays of water on this massive fire, and how exhausted they must be.
And we already know one firefighter was injured, suffered from some smoke inhalation. The other thing that's happening here is just because of the hour, people in this neighborhood are starting to arrive home from work, and they're stopping by, taking out their phones and taking a look at this fire, and you can see the black smoke. Now, it is lightening up just a little bit. We can kind of see St. Louis University Hospital behind it for the first time all afternoon. But let me just get you caught up on what we know so far. The fire started at Park Warehousing Services around 11 o'clock this morning. As Kay mentioned, as many as 100 firefighters are working to put it out. First responders have set up this perimeter around the building so no one can get within a block of it, and that's, of course, for everybody's safety. I mentioned 2 people are hurt, including that one firefighter, both being treated for smoke inhalation. It's a massive building, takes up about 3 acres, and all kinds of things are stored here. Books, citronella candles, car seats, styrofoam. Parts of the building have collapsed. Walls have collapsed since we've been on the air at 4 o'clock. And smoke is drifting across the city, over nearby highways. And of course, we'll continue to follow any new developments and bring them to you live on air and on KSDK.com. Kay.